exposing the truth behind your favorite legends. Did they really exist? First up, Robin Hood, the merry man who robbed the rich to give to the poor. One of Britain's most popular folk heroes, Robin Hood is said to have robbed from the rich to give to the poor. While some scholars believe the story of Robin Hood was inspired by a nobleman named Fulk Fitzwarren, who rebelled against King John, the famous outlaw himself never existed. Scholars argue he's more fiction than fact, possibly inspired by Fulk Fitzwarren, a rebellious nobleman. Next, William Shakespeare, the Bard of Avon himself. The famous English playwright has to be real, right? Well, maybe. Or was he? Some scholars believe William Shakespeare was in fact a pen name, and the person who wrote all those texts was never known to the public. Some say William Shakespeare was just a pen name, and the true author remains a mystery. King Arthur, the legendary king with a magical sword. The legend of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table has been around for centuries. But was Arthur a real man, or was his story inspired by a real man? Some historians point to Roman military commander Lucius Artorius Castus, while others mention Riothamus, king of the Britons, as possible candidates. As for the man who claimed the sword Excalibur, he's likely a legend. Historians suggest he might be a composite of real figures like Roman commander Lucius Artorius Castus. Mary Magdalene, often portrayed as a penitent prostitute. A well-known biblical figure, Mary Magdalene is regarded by many as a penitent prostitute who finds Jesus, who may or may not have married her according to the lost gospel. But the truth is that the Bible doesn't describe Magdalene as a sinner, nor as a prostitute. She just washed Jesus' feet and saw his resurrection. So if Mary Magdalene did exist, she just wasn't the person many of us think she was. The Bible simply describes her as a follower of Jesus, nothing more. And Confucius, the Chinese philosopher. The Chinese philosopher created the Rus school of Chinese thought, and his teachings gave birth to Confucianism. Among other things, Confucius is also credited for the Golden Rule: do not do unto others what you do not want done to yourself. But while Confucius might have lived, there are still many gray areas about his existence, where the myth outweighs the man. While he likely existed, his life story is shrouded in myth. Homer, the epic poet. The Greek poet behind books such as the Iliad and the Odyssey is said to not have been the author of these mythological epics. He simply was the first one to write them down. Homer has been described as blind, as a woman, and even as a group of Greek scholars. It is unknown whether Homer, as we imagine him, ever existed. Was he a blind bard, a woman, or a collective of writers? It's anyone's guess. Pythagoras, yes, this is reportedly the man behind the Pythagorean theorem. His influence on mathematics lives on to this day, but did he ever even exist? Some scholars believe that his followers, known as Pythagoreans, were the ones responsible for everything that was supposedly written by him. Others believe he was a made-up man, supposedly the leader of the Pythagoreans. Mulan, you might recognize the name from Disney movies. Mulan is the daughter of a warrior who disguises herself as a male warrior, but Mulan's name is not found in relevant historical records. However, it is speculated that the legend of Mulan was based on a real Chinese warrior named Wei Huahu. William Tell legend has it that the Swiss folk hero, armed with his crossbow, led a small revolt against the Austrians, who ruled Switzerland in the 14th century. But like many other folk heroes, there is not enough evidence that indeed he existed. Pope Joan became pope in 855 AC. If you find it hard to believe that a woman would become the leader of the church at that time, you're probably right. Even the Catholic Church call her an urban legend. The story goes that Pope Joan's sex wasn't revealed until she got pregnant and actually gave birth during a procession. Pope Joan eventually died shortly after. Kunta Kinte was enslaved in Gambia and taken to America. His story is told in Alex Haley's novel, Roots, the Saga of an American Family. And although his birthplace became a tourist attraction following a TV miniseries about Kinte's story, his existence is full of historical inaccuracies. This has led journalists to investigate it and conclude that Kunta Kinte might have not been enslaved, or indeed might have never even existed. Sun Tzu's book, The Art of War, is a must-read for troops to this day. But was this Chinese military leader and warrior even real? Scholars have pointed to the possibility that Sun Tzu is a pen name, and that the contents of The Art of War is a compilation of ancient Chinese military strategies and theories. St. Christopher. You might recognize St. Christopher as the patron saint of travelers. But did you know he's also the patron saint of fruit dealers? Legend has it that St. Christopher converted thousands to Christianity and died a martyr, though some scholars believe that if he ever existed, he might have just been a regular man who converted to Christianity and was murdered by the Romans. The Vatican even took him off their calendar, although due to his popularity, they never really desanctified him. Laozi. The ancient Chinese philosopher credited as the founder of Taoism might be part man, part legend. Laozi supposedly wrote the Chinese classic text Tao Te Ching, but his existence is still debated. John Henry, the African-American former slave John Henry, is a folk hero. He worked as a steel driver in railroad construction. Legend has it that he died in a race against a steam-powered rock drilling machine. Henry did win but collapsed shortly after. Henry's story has been told in many art forms, including in the song The Ballad of John Henry. Though if he ever existed, his origins are nothing short of being speculative, with theories pointing to Virginia, Alabama, Kentucky, and even Jamaica being where his famous feat took place. Lycurgus was the man who supposedly shaped the laws of ancient Sparta to reflect the three Spartan virtues: equality, military fitness, and austerity. It is speculated, however, that although a man named Lycurgus might have existed, the lawgiver that shaped the whole reformation of Sparta might have been just a legendary figure. Sybil Ludington. The legendary heroine from the Revolutionary War is said to have ridden 40 miles, almost 65 kilometers, to warn New Yorkers that the British were coming. The story of her epic ride was not mentioned, however, until over a century after it supposedly happened. So, think twice before believing everything you hear about historical legends. They might be more myth than reality.